Hey guys, and welcome to the first of two example videos. So this video is going to go over how to convert quadratic functions from one form into another. Now again, this information is on that sheet that is just below here. Okay, so check that out. Make sure you guys are comfortable with that. That's a nice kind of condensed version of everything we've talked about. So make sure you guys are familiar with that and have that available to you as you're going through the homework and such. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to talk about going from either factored or vertex form to standard form. It's the same process for either one. We are starting out in vertex form, okay? And the reason we're doing that is because it has one extra step that factored form doesn't have. So I'll make that a connection of like, hey, this is where you'd be done if you were in factored form, and we're gonna keep going to get to from vertex. So the first thing we need to do is just follow our order of operations, okay? To get from factored to or vertex into standard, you just have to multiply everything out, okay? So what I mean by that is get rid of these parentheses, FOIL, right? First, outside, inside, last, and then combine like terms. So that's what we're going to do here. So if you have an a value, you're just going to kind of hold off on that. The first thing we're going to do is focus on this thing here. So what does it mean to square something? What does it mean when you think 3 squared, right? We're going to jump and go, ooh, that's 9. But what does that mean? Why is it 9? It's 9 because to square something means you multiply that thing by itself. So since we're squaring x minus 2, what we really have is x minus 2 times x minus 2. Don't forget your plus 8. So that's our first step. This isn't something you have to necessarily write out, and this is something that a lot of people will kind of do kind of off on the side, like if they're going through the stuff, and they'll just kind of plop that back in, and that's fine too. I like to just throw it in with the word because why not? So now we want to multiply this out. And you could multiply this, but it's just easy just to multiply this together. So I'm going to keep a set of parentheses here, and what this is doing, this is actually a new parenthesis, not one of these, that this parenthesis is grouping all of this together, okay? So now what I want to do is I want to follow that FOIL acronym. So first, outside, inside, and last. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the first things in the parentheses, and then we're going to multiply the outside things, and then we're going to multiply the inside things, and then we're going to multiply the last things. So let's do that. So we get our first things are x times x, gives us x squared. Our outside things are x times negative 2, gives us negative 2x. Our inside things give us another negative 2x. And our last gives us negative 2 times negative 2, gives us a positive 4. Don't forget to bring your 8. Now, at this point here, okay, actually, I want to make it a quick note on what we had here. If I cover this 8 up, that looks like factored form. Right? If we had factored form, right, these may be different numbers. They may be the same number. There's a situation where that can happen. These would most likely be different numbers typically. And if you ignore this 8, you would still just FOIL those two together, getting you something like this, distribute in your A, and then combine like terms. And that would be it. So we're going to distribute this A now. And so when we do that, we get negative 1/2 x squared. Okay. Now some of you may be wanting to combine these and then distribute. Some of you may want to distribute and then combine. Some of you guys are just going to do it all at once, and that's great. I don't want to run out of boardroom, so I'm going to do that simultaneously. So if I have negative 2x and negative 2x, so I'm taking minus 2x minus 2x, it's a total of minus 4x. So I have minus 4x times negative 1/2. So the negative and the negative make positive, so it's going to be plus. And half of 4 gives me 2. And lastly, I have negative 1/2 times positive 4. It gives me negative 2. And don't forget your 8. Now the last thing we need to do is combine like terms, right? Again, if you hadn't done that at that point, you would do that now. We're going to jump in and do that guy. So negative 2 plus 8 gives me positive 6. So that means we started out with this vertex form, and we ended with this standard form, negative 1/2 x squared plus 2x plus 6. You can't really see that. Make it nice and clear. And that's it. That's how we go from either factored or vertex form to standard form. You just multiply it out. Be careful, right? Make sure you FOIL. Okay? Do not ever, bad. Do not say that x minus 2 squared is x squared minus 2 squared. Bad. Okay? Have to FOIL. You have to take those, write them as two things, distribute correctly, and then you go from there. So, that takes us from factored or vertex to standard. Let's talk about how we go from standard to vertex. So let's look at this guy. F of x equals negative 1/2 x squared plus 2x plus 6. And you may be going like, hey, wait a minute. We know this guy. We've seen this guy once before. And that's cool, right? I know that. What we're doing is we're using the same function this entire time, so we know what we're shooting for, with the exception of when we do go to factored form. We know what we're shooting for right now, right? We know we should end up with negative 1/2 x minus 2 plus 8. We know that. So, let's hope we get there. Now, the way to go from standard form to vertex form. First thing we want to think about is, what do I need to have for vertex form? To get vertex form, I need to have a times x minus h squared plus k. So I need to have an a, an h, and a k. I know my a value. So all I have to do is find my h and k. And what's really cool is really simple. The way we're going to do that for this class is we are going to use a nice little trick. And this trick comes from the process of what's called completing the square. If you're curious about that, Google it. It's really fun. It's really nice. Helps with build number sense and stuff like that. So if that's something you're bored and you're like, man, I wish I could do more math work, look up completing the square and I'll get you through. So what we're going to use is we're going to use this nice little fact that h is equal to negative b over 2a. So remember, that's going from standard to vertex. So this means we have our ax squared plus bx plus c. So h is simply negative b over 2a. So in our example here, h is going to be negative, so our b value is this positive 2, so 2 over 2 times our a is negative 1/2. Okay, we're going to do a little magic here. Two times negative 1/2 is just negative 1. So I have negative, negative, so that means we're going to be positive, and then I have, so those two negatives make it positive. We're left with 2 divided by 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2. So our h is 2, which makes sense because we knew we were shooting for that x minus 2 squared. Cool. Now how do I find k? Well, what's really awesome with this is, guess what? K is just the output of our vertex. So to find the output of a vertex, I need to have, so to find the output of a function, I need to have the function, which we've got right here, and I need to have the input, which we don't have right here. That's easy, right? So if this is how we find h, the way we find k is by simply finding f of h. That's it. That's all we do. We grab our calculator, we go boop, 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 boop. Just like that, make the sounds. If you don't make the sounds, it doesn't count. Okay? So, let's do the sounds. I've got my calculator right here. Bam, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to zoom up here for you. So, try and figure this out. Make sure I don't wash it out. Let's turn off my special little spotlight that I have for myself. See if it focuses a little better. There we go. All right, cool. So, our function is negative 1/2 x squared. So we have, there's a lot of ways we can do this. So we have negative 1 divided by this is weird doing it backwards, 2 times, now instead of x, we know our h value needs to be 2. 2, close it. And to do squared, we can use this button right here that says to square. Depending on what your calculator has, you're going to see different things. Another way that you can do exponents like that, let me delete that one. Okay. Another way you can do that is this little button here. This is the exponent button. If you have to do anything other than squared, okay, you hit that button. Now, depending on your version, you're either going to see that, or on the screen, you're going to see exactly this little caret thing. So I see that, so I hit 2. Then you have to go over. Now, our function is 2 plus 2, and then our x, which again is just 2. And lastly, plus 6. We hit enter. And we get 8. Awesome. So I don't want to do it anymore, so that's 8. 8. Now I want to show you another way to use this calculator. So this is obviously assuming that we have our function right here. So what we can do, go to this y equals. Right here is where we type in all of our equations, right? So I'm going to type this in. So we have negative 0.5. You could also type 1 divided by 2, or use fractions 1/2. Okay. That button right there, for those of you unfamiliar, right? This little button here is how we do all of our variables. So we have x squared plus 2x plus 6. Tired of typing. So we type it like that. Then over here we hit graph. And now your graph may look like this, may not, right? Zoom kind of helps to adjust that window. What we want to always start out with is this option here, number 6, zoom standard. So we just hit 6, and it will set our window to this kind of standardized window. So that's always a good way to start. Now we can like jump through, but easy thing to do, really cool thing to do. Okay, this is something that I'm going to show you guys. Really important. Make sure you guys know how to do this. This will be very useful for you on the test. You're going to hit second and hit y equals. That's not right. Look at my calculator when I do this. Sorry. You're going to hit second, and then you're going to hit the button that says window. Okay, what you're getting to is the table setup. And what you want is this in here that says independent. Okay, you want to highlight the ask. So you're just going to scroll down. Okay, and then you're going to scroll over, and then you're just going to hit enter. Once you've got that, you can just second and quit, and that takes you out of it. What that does, now if I hit second, and now I'm going to hit second, and then I'm going to hit the graph button because I want to get to this table. Okay. Most of you, if you just change your settings, you're going to see this. And you're going to be like, oh my God, you deleted my table, but it's okay because we can create it. So now it has our x column, and notice it's got our y1 because we have an equation of y1. I can put any number I want, 0, and then hit enter, and it's going to plug that x value into our y1 equation. So we wanted to do f of h. Well, our h was 2. So if I just simply go in here, okay, type my equation in the y equals, I hit 2, and I hit enter, I can see that it is 8. So my output is 8. So that does it for us, okay? So especially when you're going to be entering a lot of different things into a function, finding like f of 5, f of 6, f of 9, f of 30, f of negative 15, f of 2.5, you can do it like that, right? And the nice thing about that is it's not just whole numbers that it is, you can do anything. So let's say, let's get back over here. Let's say I want to do like 3.14 because I like pi. Well, if I put 3.14 into this function, it gives me 7.3502. So that's a way that we can use our calculator to help us out, right? That is something that will work for everything, forever, for all the time. If you type a function into y equals, you go to the table like that and you can bust things out. If you fill up your table, just use the cursor to move yourself up. You just overwrite them. You just replace them. Okay? So, what we have now figured out. Remember, we're going from standard to vertex form. We have this standard form, which means we know our A. We then found our h value using this little formula here. Found that h was 2. We took that we took that k value, we took that 2 value for h, plugged it into our function, and we got our k value, which is 8. So that means that this function in vertex form is a times x minus h squared plus k. Boom. Standard to vertex. Gotcha. All right. Now, what if I want to go from standard to factored? There's two ways that we're going to do this in this class, and that is by factoring or by using the quadratic formula. Now, factoring, I'm not going to do a video on this. I'm not going to talk about it. I will add a video in here that's Khan Academy. That's going to be a link about their factoring quadratics. They did a great job covering it, and I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. So, if you are curious about how to factor, go look at that video. It's really great. Factoring is a really useful ability to do. It's something that we'll be doing a little bit more later this term as well. So I highly recommend you go and watch that video. Let's change that. Go watch that video. That is a direct order from your instructor. Do it now. Pause this video. All right, welcome back. Thanks for watching that factoring. So how do I do this without factoring? Or let's say I can't factor it, right? We use the quadratic formula. So really important here. Really, really important. The quadratic formula can only solve one type of problem. One type of problem. Not every problem, just one. We can manipulate problems so that they are of the one form, but a quadratic formula can only solve one problem, and that is when our function equals 0. So, let's give a big old statement here. If f of x is a quadratic function, fxn, abbreviation for function. Okay, so if f of x is a quadratic function, then the solution, or sometimes solutions, to f of x equals 0 are x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I know you guys have seen this before. It is a beast of a formula, but it is something that you need to work with. You need to learn how to plug in using your calculator, doing it piece by piece slowly, or doing it all at once, being careful with your parentheses. If you need more one-on-one guidance, especially with how to use your calculator, email me now, set up an appointment to talk with me on Zoom, and we will get this figured out for you, okay? So, if you're going to do that, email me with a couple of different times that you can meet. I'll select one, and we'll go from there. Okay. This is the only time we're allowed to use a quadratic formula. If we are trying to solve when a quadratic function equals 0. If that's what we're trying to solve, that's our solution. Okay? Notice we have plus or minus, so we're going to get two different solutions here. Now, those two solutions are our two roots, our r and our s value. So let's do that on this lovely little equation here. So I'm going to get my calculator. Now, depending on which mode you have, which version you have, there's a really cool feature that some of you guys can do. Now, if we look here, okay, this little green alpha button, any button that's green, you hit this first, and then you can kind of get to a green. So we're going to hit that, and then we're going to hit y equals, which takes us to this F1 menu. That first option, NOVD, that's numerator over denominator. That is the way our calculator does fractions. And it allows you to type things in as a fraction. That's super helpful here because that allows you to type this whole thing in all at once and this whole thing without having to worry about chunky, messy parentheses. So if you have this version and you are able to do that, awesome. Makes that much easier. If you don't, I'm going to do it as if I don't have it. So there, we don't have it. What you need to do, parentheses around your numerator, parentheses around your denominator. If you don't use those parentheses around the entire numerator and the entire denominator, you have problems. Okay? Those problems specifically, if you don't put them around the numerator, this division bar only goes to here. So what it will do is it will divide this square root by 2a, and then it will add negative b to that, or subtract negative b from that. What we need is this whole thing. So the way we're going to do that in this problem, we're just going to hit parenthesis. Now, b, or in this problem, is 2. So we're going to have negative 2. Negative 2. We're going to do plus first. Now we need our square root. So if you look above that x squared button, there's our square root. Second, x squared to get to our square root. Depending on what type of a calculator you have, you're either going to see what I see right there, or instead of that box, it's going to give you another parenthesis. If it gives it another parenthesis, there's only one extra step, and that's just simply that after you hit C, you're going to close that parenthesis, and then you're going to close another parenthesis for that whole numerator. Okay, that's the only extra step, and we'll kind of remind you about it then. So, I've got my square root. So now we need b squared, which is 2 squared. So 2 squared minus 4 times, now our a is negative 1/2 or negative 0.5. Either way, right? There's a lot of ways you can do it. Then times c, which is 6. Now, let's get this into focus. There we go. So from here, if you had where it gave you that square root and then parenthesis, right now you would hit close parenthesis. Okay? But since the version I have doesn't, I have to hit that right arrow to get out of that square root. And now I want to close off that parenthesis. Okay? So if you have the version where it gives you the bracket, the square root, and then the blinking box, once you type C, you have to hit the right arrow to get out of it. If you gave you the version where you have the square root and then parenthesis, once you have to see, you're going to have to hit a parenthesis instead of the right arrow. So that's the only difference. Okay? So that is our numerator. So then just divide, now a new set of parentheses, 2 times a, which is negative 1/2. So then negative 0.5. And close our parentheses. We hit enter. Negative 2, that's one of our solutions. Holy cow. So, our solutions for this problem here when it equals 0, because remember, to write this in a factored form, our r and our s value, we need an a, r, and s. We know our a, our r, and our s are the roots, zeros, x-intercepts. So they are in fact the solutions to this problem. So, r is negative 2. Next we need to find s. You do not have to retype all of this. Okay? Very easy way to do this. Okay? What you're just going to do is you're going to hit second, and then you're going to hit enter. And that just pulls up the last thing you typed. Okay? That just pulls up that last thing that you just entered, that last calculation. And so we're just going to scroll on back. Scroll on back all the way until we get to that plus. Now, just switch that to a minus and hit enter, and there's our other value, 6. Show you guys real good. Make sure you guys hit 6. Yeah. So our S is 6. Now some of you guys may be saying like, I have a computer program built into my calculator that does quadratic function. Cool, no problem with that. If you don't have that and you want that, there's some online things you can get for it. Normally when we're in person, I could give to you, or most likely the tutoring center is the best place to get it. So we have our R, we have our S, we know our A. So I'm going to squat down and write this down. F of x equals negative 1/2 times x minus r. So x minus negative 2, so plus 2, and minus s, or minus 6. Bam! There is from standard form to factored form. Gotcha, guys. So, 2 more to go. We have to go from factored to vertex and standard to vertex, and that's what we're going to do. Sorry. We already did standard to vertex. Vertex to factored. All right, factored to vertex, and look at that. That is the same factored form. Look at that. That is the same factored form we just found. So we know what our vertex is going to look like because we found it twice already. We find it once and use it once. So, what's really cool about quadratic functions, amongst the many things that I've already said is really cool about quadratic functions, they're symmetric. The vertex gives us an axis of symmetry. So if I have some quadratic function, let's say here is our vertex. If I draw a vertical line through that vertex, this graph has symmetry there. So in other words, if I take this graph and I fold it along that line, it's going to fall right on top of itself. That is really useful. There's this other thing that we can do with symmetry. Okay, if I draw a horizontal line, say something like the x-axis, I know that these 2 points are what we say equidistant. In other words, they're the same distance from themselves to this axis of symmetry. So those 2 distances are the same. We know our 2 roots here, okay? So our root is at -2 and at 6. Now here's the cool thing. So we know our 2 roots are, -2 and 6. What else do I know about this function? Just by looking at this, what else do I know? Well, I know a is -1/2. So what way does this open? Does it open up or down? It opens down. So that means a graph roughly looks like that. Now notice there's no scale on my vertical axis because I don't know how high up this goes or how short or whatever it goes. But I know it's a parabola, so it's got this symmetry, it's got this general shape. It goes through these 2 points and it opens down. That is huge, right? From just looking at this equation, doing no mathematical work whatsoever, I got a rough sketch of our parabola. That's pretty cool. Now, if this is our vertex, that means I can draw a nice axis of symmetry there, which means the distance from here to here is the same as from there to there. We know what those points are, so we can just count it, right? But let's imagine we couldn't. What we can do is we can find halfway between there. In other words, we can find the average of those 2 points. So just how going from standard form to vertex form, we had those 2 formulas, or that little trick, right? We had said that h was -b over 2a. We have a trick here too. H is equal to r plus s over 2. In our problem here, that means that h is -2 plus 6 over 2. -2 plus 6 gives me 4. And 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. H is 2, which we already knew that, didn't we? Now, to find k, just as we did going from standard to vertex, we're just going to use the fact that k is equal to f of h. In other words, plug in 2 for these 2 x's and evaluate that, and bam! We already know what we're going to get. This video's already running long, so I'm going to tell you. We get 8. But if you didn't know that already, right, because you hadn't done this already a bunch of times, either plug this in on your home screen, right? Type this whole thing into your y equals and then use the table, right? There's lots of different ways to do this. Get that value. We know what our vertex form is. We've already written our vertex form down a couple times. We have our H, we have our K, we have our A. Boom. Almost done with this video. All right, how can we go from vertex to factored? A little more 8-ish. Ready? You can't. That's it. Boom, done. We do not have enough information from vertex form to give us our factored form. What we can do though is we can go from vertex form up to standard form and then to factored form, okay? There is no bridge going from vertex to factored. There's no trick, there's no formula, there's nothing special. You just can't, okay? So with that, that is how to go from all the forms of a quadratic to another form of a quadratic and some cool calculator things. It's getting late. I'm getting tired. Well, not tired, but a little jumpy and energetic. So see you guys later. There'll be one more video for this that will be some examples on some problem solving, some different things like that, some modeling situations, and that video will come out later this week because I'm not doing that tonight. You guys have a great day.